My brother Stephen Mbide with that traffic update. Now I know, yes, that you're acquainted with that information. Now you know how best to navigate the very, very rowdy roads this beautiful Tuesday morning. Now we're veering into a conversation on workplace inclusion for people with disabilities. Now get this, persons with disabilities are among the most marginalized populations in the world. It is estimated that 15% of the world's population have a disability, with the highest prevalence in low-income countries like Uganda. Now, according to the Uganda Bureau of Statistics information we are getting indicates that in 2002, the number of persons with disabilities in the country was around 3.8 million. But as it is, in 2014, that number skyrocketed to 4.4 million persons with disabilities, and in 2020 we are talking about more than 6 million persons with disabilities. Now, to talk about this and a lot more, I'm now joined by Deborah Iyute, a program officer at the National Union of People with Disabilities in Uganda, and Douglas Opio, the executive director of the Federation of Uganda Employers, who join me right now in the studio. Very good morning, Iyute and Mr. Douglas.
Good morning, sir.
So first of all, we would like you to help us understand what is the Federation of Uganda Employers. Yes.
Thank you. The Federation of Uganda Employers is an employers association. So essentially, all people who employ others are eligible to become members. Of course, you have to be legally registered. And we do mainly three things for the employers. First, we do lobbying and advocacy for a good business environment. Then secondly, we help you a lot in people management, so employment relations and legal related issues so that you're employing in the right way, complying with the law. And then thirdly, of course, we do business support, all kinds of business support, whether you want to recruit, whether you want to promote persons with disabilities at your workplace, basically all kinds of business support.
And if you're just joining us, you should also know that the Federation of Uganda Employers has been doing this at least since 1960. A representative body looking out for the interests of the workers right there since 1960. They didn't start yesterday. So let me also bring in Nudipu. We have the program officer, Deborah Iyute. She is the program officer at, National Union National Union of Disabled Persons in Uganda. Deborah, tell us about Nudipu and her interventions around promoting disability-inclusive employment in Uganda.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to be here. First of all, I want to say thank you. We as Nudipu, we are an umbrella organization for persons with disabilities in Uganda. What does we mean? We promote all different categories of disabled people. We mean physical, sensory and mental disabilities. About 14 members, groups of members are fully represented in Nudipu. Also, we have district unions. We as Nudipu, we are here we started in 1983. We are working, our focus is to promote inclusion. That's why we see as we are working hand in hand with the FUE. In the area of employment. We want to influence a change of attitude. Many employers are not aware about disability, how to make persons with disability or disability inclusion. So we want to support the process of awareness and the rights of persons with disabilities in line with the laws of Uganda, like the Constitution. We want to see that we promote access and also to build the capacity of persons with a disability, their confidence, self-esteem. We encourage them that, and we also talk to the employers. Yes, we have our big role is advocacy. What do we advocate? We use the laws. We use the laws to advocate, and we see from both government and private sectors to see that there is a positive change.
Of course, Deborah Iyute, the program officer at the National Union of Disabled Persons in Uganda, is being aided by Isara right there. And let me also bring in Douglas Opio, the executive director of the Federation of Uganda Employers, to talk about, inequality in employment. We also understand that inequality in employment, Mr. Douglas, is one of the main stumbling blocks to social and economic development, especially for persons with disabilities. How does this manifest?
The challenge we have had in the past years is linked a lot to ignorance. So essentially, there is bias towards persons with disabilities. Sometimes these biases are either conscious or basically unconscious. And that's why we have been focusing a lot on creating awareness. And the biases are expressed in various ways. They're expressed, for instance, during the time of recruitment. People would make their judgment, make their decision that if a person is disabled, then they're not competent. But disability and incompetence are completely two different things.
Yes.
A person can be physically disabled but fully competent. In fact, sometimes even more competent than an able-bodied person. So one of the manifestation is a product of ignorance, a product of lack of awareness. Then secondly, some employers want to employ, but they simply don't have access to information. Where can I get a person with disability to employ? We have had employers who have reached out to us, but at Nudipo, they have a database of skilled persons with disabilities where employers can reach and access information on persons with disabilities, their competences, and the people they could potentially employ.
Deborah, let's talk about some of the measures you've put in place as Nudipo to ensure that the promotion of inclusive disability employment in Uganda.
Thank you very much. What I want to say, how we always make inclusion to happen. We focus in the area of employment. The first step is we want to see access. Well, how is the accessibility? We have many old buildings. They don't have ramps or they don't have lifts. Imagine a person on a wheelchair coming. Can this person really access? That is the first thing, that is physical access at a place. But right now what I'm happy with it, that like Makerere, their engineers now are becoming aware about it. So whenever they see any building, it is always improved. But our challenge is the old buildings. Now Douglas has talked about information. Yes, information is really for the the blind and the deaf. Sometimes the blind cannot read this paper. They need a computer, maybe with a software called job access to work. That helps them to listen, and their work continues on normally. If at the workplace, a blind person passes interview, please give this blind person opportunity. Buy this software of JAWS. This means that this is inclusion. Then on the other side, if maybe this person is deaf and you've employed this person, others are talking, others are speaking, one is deaf, which means this person needs an interpreter. If an interpreter is here, this interpreter can facilitate communication barriers, and the work will go on well. So all the time, it doesn't mean that all the time they should be moving with the interpreter, but all the deaf people have different reasonable needs. There are some deaf people who cannot work, who can work without interpreters, like in the bank. They are focusing like counting money. In the area of like engineers, accountants, yes. But what is very important, if there is a day for the meeting where there is information that is needed to communicate to all staff, that's when an interpreter should be brought in. Now, on the side of intellectual disability, it is also needs adjustment of time. This group does not want a lot of brain work. We need to change, maybe like 3 hours, 2 hours, depending on his or her capacity. This will make also inclusion to happen. In general, we as employment, we want to see individual persons with disabilities reasonable accommodation, where each person has a capacity to make things happen. That's why we are working together with the FUE to promote awareness.
Deborah Iyute is a program officer at the National Union of Disabled Persons in Uganda. Let me also bring in the executive Director of the Federation of Uganda Employers, Mr. Douglas Opio, to talk about how best we can phase out the inequalities in employment to offer disability inclusion in the workplace.
Thank you. The starting point is information.
Right.
Yeah, because once we are aware, then we can, of course, act responsibly. And this is what we have been doing together with NUDIPU and other partners like Site Savers, for instance, ADD International. So what we have been doing is to move to the regions, not just in Kampala here, but to move to Mbarara, for instance, to Mbale, to Jinja. And what we are trying to do is to create a level of awareness. In other words, to make employers disability confident. Some of them have their doubts, but when you explain to them, of course, they understand what needs to be done. Secondly, we are working a lot in the area of policies, so that employers have their human resource manuals, their policies, which are disability inclusive. So it's not accidental. For instance, what Deborah is explaining, reasonable accommodation, it doesn't happen accidentally, but deliberately. So if you have a policy in place, then that can be done. Issues like having a focal point person at your workplace. So this person can also help other staff. We are also helping a lot with training employers so that they are able to know how to handle persons with disabilities and the ways to be able to support them. And of course, when we organize workshops, when we organize meetings, we are also targeting sharing of good practices. What are other employers doing and what can their colleagues learn from them, so that we can have a lot of improvement. Because we have, by the way, employers who are doing excellent work here. For instance, Uganda Breweries Limited, total commitment to employing persons with disabilities. I was quite impressed to understand their target. By 2030, they want 12.4% of their workforce to be persons with disabilities. So
that's amazing.
Yeah, so employers are making a very high level of commitment towards employing persons with disabilities. So when their colleagues see this happening, of course, they are encouraged as well to do something, not just at the workplace, but even beyond the workplace as well.
Deborah, let's make sense of the numbers that are coming in from the Uganda Bureau of Statistics. Now, they indicate that in 2002, the number of disabled persons in Uganda was at around 3.8 million. 2014, that number skyrocketed to 4.4 million. 2020, we are now talking about 6 million. We'd like to know the factors behind that increase in the number of disabled persons in the country. We also understand that people with disabilities, the men are affected more than the women. Is that true? Or is it the other way around? Women being more affected than the men. The women at 15% and the men at 10%. And we also understand that there is a higher prevalence in northern Uganda. So let's interrogate that. What are the factors behind that?
That is a very interesting question. First of all, what I want to say, in Uganda, the population, Douglas talked about ignorance, attitude of long ago. It contributed to disability. Like, for example, when you go at home maybe to visit, and maybe you ask, Mommy, how many children do you have? She can say, I have 4 plus 1, who is disabled. So this one is not always counted. The 4 are counted, but this one is hidden inside. That's why by then the number was too low. They didn't know that there are many people persons with disability in Uganda. But very important to see that why it has raised up the number is because of awareness, opportunities to education, improved access to health, role models. We go to the communities, talk to the parents, and people will see, even this one can work. So the attitudes have been changed and said, even me, my child in the future, I should also take my child to school. So that's why you see even the school enrollment is becoming more compared to previously.
Right.
Previously, they were not joining universities, but because of the laws, because of awareness, We have encouraged these people, and now people are now joining. So it is contributing positively because of information, role models, and opportunities, with also the political representation. Now people are saying, I also want to care my child. I also want my child to be a political person. So these are some of the things that have contributed towards it. But on the negative side is because of sicknesses that have come up. Poor administration of drugs has also caused maybe deafness, blindness, accidents.
I see.
If you go to Mulago, the department of maybe in the world of accidents, you will see that most percentage is border. So this has also contributed to disabilities. That is on the negative side. Then also occupation hazards. There are many industries that are working, but many people, it has caused disability at the workplace. So it is now that we are trying to make awareness to strengthen the health and safety of persons who are working in those places, so that they don't become deaf, they don't get also other disabilities. The chemicals that they are using, we need them to be protected. Then in the area of accident, yes, there's a government, it's a government responsibility to see how we can lower down or minimize the accidents that have come up, caused disability to go higher. But the population of Uganda, we are saying women are more than men. It is even Ubos says that women are more than men. Men are few, women are more. So it's automatically, it's a national issue.
I like that.
I just imagine it's like that.
Okay, that is a great elaboration. Deborah Yuta, she is the programs officer at the National Union of Disabled Persons in Uganda. Douglas, let's interrogate what expectations the disability fraternity expects from government and the private sector as far as disability inclusion is concerned.
Yeah, of course, the starting point is that laws are fair. So the first expectation from the government is that government puts in place reasonable laws. And I think we have done fairly well in this area. The initial set of our labor laws, for instance, made in 2000, that were revised in 2006, now it's also currently under review. So the laws have been made accommodative. The law doesn't allow discrimination at all of any kind, not just of persons with disabilities, but the laws have been put in place. And also we have disability-specific laws. For instance, the Disability Act, which also comes with the Disability Policy. And with that act, we have the Disability Council. And this is overseeing government interventions along this line. So from the government side, we have seen commitments, and even in terms of improvement of government infrastructure, we have seen all the new buildings, whether they have been at UNRWA or it has been URA, all of them have reasonable accommodation. They have lifts, they have ramps. So the government has been taking initiatives towards this line. Hopefully the enforcement levels, of course, will continue to go higher. For instance, the issue of occupational safety and health, Deborah spoke about this. People are still getting workplace accidents, but if we continue to register workplaces, then ensure that inspections are done, then of course it's possible to ensure that accidents are minimized or even placed close to zero. In some companies it has been successful, like Vivo Energy. For a long time now, nobody has gotten any accident. So it's actually possible to achieve zero accident. Those are some of the things that I've seen the government doing from a regulatory side.
And what are some of the challenges that are negating all these efforts that are being put together to promote disability-inclusive employment?
Yeah, there are quite a number. You know, laws change over time. Of course, we are currently reviewing the law. Some of the aspects of our law are basically outdated, I would say. Certain compulsions have to be put in place. For instance, Nudipo has been talking about a percentage. If you don't look at, for instance, in terms of percentage or absolute numbers, then you might as well never employ a person with a disability. For instance, if at the Federation we don't deliberately set out to employ persons with disabilities, it doesn't happen automatically. Yeah, so that's one of the challenges that we have seen, that whereas the laws are there, we are not very deliberate. Secondly, I've already talked about the issue of enforcement. The law might exist, but also the enforcement level is still weak for various reasons. For instance, if you look at labor officers who are meant to enforce the labor laws at the district level, in some cases they are not just there at all. We have over 100, nearly now 140 districts, but less than 50% of those have labor officers. So if you don't have people to enforce the law, then of course people can abuse the law and not respect it at all. So that has been a barrier for us. But I'm more optimistic than pessimistic. Indeed. Because I've seen what the government has been doing, the improvements that we have been making incrementally, the engagement they have been having with the employers. So hopefully the situation can get much better. Cases here within the city here has been doing much better in ensuring that buildings are up to standard. So the future is much brighter.
Well, of course, you have to be optimistic, and Absolutely. The fact that we are interrogating these issues, the powers that be, the officials are watching, and I'm sure they'll be doing something in that regard to ensure that they offer reprieve to persons with disabilities. 6 million, that's a big number, Douglas Opio.
Extremely huge number. Actually, we estimate that it's slightly over 12.4% of our population. So that's huge. Yeah,
and we need to plan. And some of the people who are planning, there's an organization, Deborah Iyute, let's interrogate the purpose of the Uganda Business and Disability Network. Yes, to the organization and companies that subscribe to the network. What are the benefits?
You know, one thing is ILO at international level and at the global level, Disability Business Network. FUE is also a member. But the idea we borrowed it from ILO. We shared with the CEOs at the CEO forum together with the FUE, and they accepted to bless that let us start this disability network program, and it's being hosted under FUE offices. The purpose is we want to see how to improve involvement of persons with disability at work in line with business, in companies. Okay, leave at the government side, but in the business, many jobs we can get under these business places to motivate. What is very important is people to subscribe, to become members of the disability network. And if the opportunity comes, we come and support your organization, how best to improve disability, how to guide you, how to build the capacity in inclusion, and also giving you support in reviewing your policies, to train your staff on a disability, and also we get opportunity for meetings. Like, for example, we have annual meetings for business network. So which also, it will be also a very good opportunity, and you will be recognized.
All right, Deborah.
Persons with disability are interested, and we are welcoming all the companies that are interested. Please go and register with the FUE, become members. Together we can force and enforce the agenda of equality and inclusion in Uganda.
Together we can enforce the agenda of quality inclusion at the workplace. Thank you very much, Deborah Iyute, and thank you very much, Douglas Opio, for having made the time to speak to us right here on Morning at NTV. It's a pleasure.
Pleasure. Thank you, sir.
And you're still watching Morning at NTV. At this opportune moment, we are going to take a breather and return with another conversation. The young people who want to take over Ugandan politics. We'll be right back.